Hi everyone, welcome back to Timeless Tales. I'm Mr. Wolf. Across the boundless ocean of grass that is the Eurasian steppe, a wind whispers tales of an empire without walls, of a people born in the saddle, whose legacy was not carved in stone but written on the very currents of the air. They were a ghost, a rumor on the edges of civilization, a name that struck fear into the hearts of kings and emperors. They were the Scythians, the forgotten horse lords of Eurasia. For nearly 1,000 years, they were the undisputed sovereigns of a realm that stretched from the shadow of the Carpathian Mountains to the doorstep of ancient China. They were a confederation of fierce nomadic tribes, a phantom nation whose borders shifted with the seasons and the migrations of their herds. To the settled peoples of the south, the Greeks, the Persians, the Assyrians, they were the ultimate barbarians, a force of nature as unpredictable and untamable as a steppe thunderstorm. Their home was the horizon, their throne was the saddle, and their law was the bow. These were the Scythians, and for centuries, their dominion was absolute, their presence a constant, terrifying drumbeat on the edge of the known world. The source of their power, the very soul of their culture, was the horse. They were not merely riders. They were one with their mounts, a terrifying centaur-like fusion of man and beast. From a young age, Scythian children learned to ride before they could properly walk, their lives unfolding almost entirely on horseback. This unparalleled equestrian skill gave birth to their most devastating weapon, the Scythian bow, shorter than the infantry bows of settled armies, but immensely powerful and composite in its construction. It was designed to be drawn, aimed, and fired from a galloping horse. They were the masters of the Parthian shot, a deadly maneuver where a warrior would feign retreat, only to twist in the saddle and unleash a fatal volley upon his pursuers. Their armies were a swirling, chaotic storm of horsemen, a maelstrom of arrows that descended upon their foes without warning. They did not fight in rigid formations or engage in the set-piece battles favored by the empires they terrorized. Instead, they were a fluid, living entity, a swarm that could coalesce to strike with devastating force, then disperse into the vastness of the steppe, melting away before any counterattack could be mounted. They harassed supply lines, launched lightning raids, and drew powerful armies deep into the barren, featureless plains, where hunger, thirst, and the endless hail of arrows would do their work. The mighty Persian king, Darius the Great, learned this lesson to his great cost. He marched into the steppes with one of the largest armies the world had ever seen, seeking to punish the Scythians, only to find himself chasing shadows. His grand army was bled dry, not by a single decisive battle, but by 1,000 cuts, forced into a humiliating retreat from a land that would not be conquered and a people who would not be broken. Unlike the great empires of antiquity, the Scythians left behind no grand cities of marble, no colossal statues to their gods, no sprawling palaces to their kings. They've built no Parthenon, no Colosseum, no Great Wall. Their architecture was the yurt, a portable dwelling of felt and wood that could be disassembled and carried on wagons. Their cities were the great mobile encampments that followed the herds across the plains. Their monuments were not made of stone, but of earth and memory. They were a people in constant motion, their entire civilization a testament to the transient and permanent nature of the nomadic life. Their chronicles were not written in books, but were sung by bards around flickering campfires, epic poems of heroic deeds and lost battles carried from one generation to the next, as ethereal and enduring as the steppe wind itself. To search for a Scythian city is to search for the path of a bird in the sky. Their legacy was intentionally, defiantly, ephemeral. Yet they did not pass from this world without leaving a trace. For all their supposed barbarism, the Scythians possessed an artistic vision of breathtaking sophistication and power, a culture that was at once both brutal and achingly beautiful. Their secrets lie buried beneath the earth, in the great kurgans, the monumental burial mounds that dot the landscape of the steppe-like silent, sleeping hills. Within these earthen tombs, archaeologists have unearthed a world of almost unbelievable splendor. The Scythians were masters of goldwork, creating treasures that rival those of any civilization. Their art, a dynamic and ferocious style known as the animal style, teems with life. Golden stags with impossibly elaborate antlers, coiled panthers ready to pounce, and mythical griffins locked in eternal combat adorn everything from weapons and armor to horsetack and personal ornaments. This was not mere decoration. It was a cosmology forged in gold. A world where predators and prey were locked in a perpetual, violent, and beautiful dance of life and death, reflecting the harsh realities of their own existence. These kurgans reveal a people obsessed with both the ferocious beauty of the natural world and the solemn mysteries of the afterlife. Their chieftains were not buried alone. They were sent into the next world accompanied by everything they would need. Their most prized weapons, vessels filled with wine and food, and, in a testament to their brutal reverence, sacrificed retainers and scores of their finest horses, all slain and meticulously arranged to serve their masters in eternity. The tombs themselves are a paradox, the final, permanent resting places for a people who spent their entire lives in motion. a silent testament in earth to a culture that roared with the sound of hooves and the whistle of the wind. But where did they go? An empire that ruled for 1,000 years, a people whose name was synonymous with terror and dominion, cannot simply vanish. Yet in the annals of history, they do. Slowly, over centuries, the name of the Scythians begins to fade. New waves of nomadic peoples, perhaps the Sarmatians, themselves a related and equally formidable horse culture, began to push from the east. The climate may have changed, altering the grasslands upon which their entire way of life depended. Perhaps they were simply absorbed, their bloodlines and traditions mingling with those of the peoples who replaced them, their distinct identities slowly dissolving into the great genetic melting pot of the steppe. There was no final cataclysmic battle, no fall of a great capital city to mark their end. Their departure from the stage of history was as quiet and mysterious as their arrival. They were a storm that raged across the world for a millennium, and then, the winds simply died down. The name that had made emperors tremble became a footnote, a whisper in the histories of the Greeks and Persians, a half-remembered legend of wild horsemen from a forgotten age. The great Kurgans fell silent, their golden treasures sleeping undisturbed for millennia, the only proof that this phantom empire had ever been real. They vanished into the very landscape that had forged them, becoming one with the endless grass and the eternal sky. Empires rise in stone, but the Scythians rode on the wind. While other civilizations built monuments to defy time, the Scythians embraced its passage, living in its relentless flow. They were a river, not a mountain. They remind us that power is not always measured in walls and territory, and that a legacy need not be written in stone to endure. Sometimes, the most powerful stories are the ones carried only by the wind, whispered across the silent, empty plains. Tales of a people who were masters of their world, and then were gone.